Good morning, everybody. This is the Oregon Liquor and Cannabis Commission meeting of the October meeting, of October 19th. Let's take the roll first.
Commissioner Curran. Here. Commissioner Jordan.
Here.
Commissioner Floyd. Here. Commissioner Porter.
Here.
Commissioner Davis.
Here.
Here.
Sarah Zimmer.
Here. Before we get started with the minutes, I'd like to take just 2 seconds and say that the commission made a conscious effort to go around the state and show respect for the other areas of the state as well. We're here in Eastern Oregon. We have a fantastic commissioner, Commissioner Curran, who represents Eastern Oregon on the commission. Thank you for your hospitality. And besides holding a meeting here, for those of you who are not aware, we had a very productive meeting yesterday with all the law enforcement people east of Oregon. We met with the chief of police of Pendleton. We met with the state police. We met with the sheriff's department. Representative Levy from Eastern Oregon was there with her staff, and we wanted to understand what the issues here are, and that's the reason why we're going around the state, and we'll continue to do so. I think it's very. Thank you for all your hospitality, and I think I will talk on behalf of all the commissioners. This has been. With that, the approval of September 22nd commission meeting, any discussion at all on that? Before I get a motion, there's 2 things I'd like to ask, and again, Adam, thank you so much for your excellent job. Is Jason here? Will you do us a favor, please, as the director, it says here that the director of compliance reported on his role with the task force that's organized by the Retail Crime Association of Oregon. Director Hanson will connect the agents with this group. The group will meet once a month in January and have a legislative placeholder. Will you please keep this commission informed on a written report, and let us know what's going on with that? Absolutely. Yeah, I really want to do that. And as far as the fall update of the governor's budget, Steve, whether it's going to be December 1st or late February, will you make sure that we're up to date on the revision? So, okay. I need a motion for. Commissioner Kirk.
And move to September 22nd, October 11th, 2022. As written.
Commissioner Curran.
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan.
Yes.
Commissioner Floyd. Yes. Commissioner Porter.
Yes.
Commissioner Davis.
Yes.
Sarah Zimmer.
Yes.
Sarah Zimmer.
Yes. I also need approval of the October 11th, 2022 special commission meeting, which we all remember very well. Commissioner Doherty? I don't see the motion here. Oh, well, you're getting both of them.
I included that.
Rules, the staff recommends the commission discussion and decision on administrative rules. Nicole, are you on? And you're on. Nicole,
Morning, yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
we can hear you fine, thank you.
Excellent. All right, good morning, Chair Rosenbaum and Commissioners. For the record, my name is Nicole Lasse, and I'm the Rules Coordinator for the OPC. I'm here to present 2 rulemaking actions for your consideration today. The first item for final action is the marijuana license moratorium. The 2022 Oregon Legislature passed House Bill 4016, of which Section 1 imposes a moratorium on new producer, processor, wholesaler, and retailer applications. The legislation requires that OLCC inactivate new applications received after January 1st, 2022 for these license types. For applications received on or before January 1st, 2022, applicants must timely submit a land use compatibility statement, and applicants may not change location or ownership of these applications. House Bill 4016 had an effective date of April 4th, 2022, and required the Commission to adopt rules to implement this legislation. On April 21st, 2022, the Commission voted to take temporary action by amending OAR 845-025-1131 and 845-025-1132. The temporary rule went into effect on April 25th, 2022, and is set to expire on October 21st, 2022. Upon approval, OAR 845-025-1131 and OAR 845-025-1132 will become permanent on October 22nd, 2022. The moratorium is in effect until March 31st, 2024. And staff or I would be happy to answer any questions.
Is there any discussion? Just 1 second, Commissioner. I do have one question on this. We've already gone through this extensively. I think there's a great deal of interest in what's going to happen after March. And Steve, would you just spend a minute giving us your thoughts on the moratorium will remain in effect until March 31st, 2024. There's a tremendous amount of interest, I know. Will you give us your thinking on, you can't predict the future, but give us your thinking.
Chairman, for the record, Steve Marks, Executive Director, OLCC. So, yeah, I don't know what will happen. I haven't seen any proposed legislation from any quarter. Of course, we'll have a new governor thinking about what she will want to do in this regard. But there is discussion among some of the industry that is thinking about whether we should tie licensing to a population cap. And the state, because we have saturation on retail in particular, I think that's a concern for folks. We have a lot of production. So that's something that I've heard about. I think they are thinking, or at least from some quarters, some people, some thoughts are that would ratchet downward from where we're at today to a lower threshold for the marijuana businesses that are within it. That's one idea. But, it's as easy to say that, we might move into a new world wide open, depending on what the federal government does. What happens, I think we're still hopeful that, banking and the lame duck session of Congress might come into play here, and that begins to change, I think, people's outlooks about what the future of cannabis is, not just here, but across the country. So don't have a pat answer on that, but there is some discussion about whether we should have controls on businesses by population, which is not where we were in the past, obviously, but maybe a part of our ongoing future. So something that for commissioners to think about, and I'll certainly keep you informed as I hear more about ideas from them.
Before you leave. Gotcha. One of the things is we're getting competing factions in this industry right now. On one hand, the current industry population is concerned about oversaturation. As an organization, we had that concern 8 years ago. On the other hand, we have groups and individuals who feel as though they were excluded out of this process and campaigning against any more limitations or reductions, or allowing the LCC to have the ability to limit the number of licensees that we put out there. think that part of the discussion in the future is we're gonna have to make some hard decisions, as we always do, on how we have this market grow, particularly in light of federal legislation that will then allow for interstate commerce to occur. How do you propose we deal with that, or is it a matter of education, conversations that we can have as a commission to look this before March?
I think that's too, and you've got more than one dynamic in that assessment, right? We sort of have the open system and protecting the people that are in the embedded licensees, right? And we had a more Wild West system, more capitalistic system, where it was based on pure competition and survival, right? That is a decision point that the commission can weigh in. The state has to figure out for itself where it wants to be. The other part of that is the equity issue and equity licensing. You know, we don't really have a proposal in Oregon to do direct equity licensing. We have a grant legislation that we would look to help with capitalization. We have the opportunity in statute to define a marijuana reassignment program, which allows great flexibility in providing some relinquished licenses to disadvantaged, economically disadvantaged organizations that we could bring into the system. I got a new take on that and a policy idea we're going to look to develop. We may do a propose or have a discussion with you and bring forward a mentoring and training program. We can connect up with capital licensing. That's an idea. Washington has sort of begun to go that direction. In fact, I had discussions with Director Garza. I think he moved more affirmatively in that direction after we had a conversation. But I think we had some opportunity. It is dependent a bit on how much time we have under a cap. Because the cap goes away and you get a license. So if we're going to do something significant with the reserved marijuana reassignment program licenses, we need to figure that out, and we're going to need a little bit of time to implement that. But if it's a capitalization program, which could be beneficial, you know, that too, that we could probably figure out how to roll out quicker and would certainly be beneficial. So a couple of choices here, really, I think, depending on whether this limitation on marijuana licenses is going to continue for at least a while longer in the future than is currently provided for statute. Thank you.
The reason I asked you that question was that way before March 31st, 2024, we're going to have a much better idea of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And the changes are going to be enormous. We're not going to have any control over it, but we better be prepared for it.
In some, Mr. Chairman, right? If we decide that we need to extend this moratorium a little bit more, regardless of what happens, we have a little locus of things. We'll have an opportunity to do.
Thank you. I'm sorry, do we have a motion on that? We need a motion.
Okay,
Commissioner?
I move to amend OAR 845-025-1131 and 845-025-1132, effective October 22nd, 2022.
Commissioner Byrne,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
Yeah.
Commissioner Floyd,
Yes.
Commissioner Warner,
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
Rosenbaum,
Yes. Reporting section, human trafficking at marijuana licensed premises.
Yes. That is the next item for final action. The 2022 Oregon Legislature passed House Bill 4074, of which Section 2 sets requirements for reporting sex trafficking or other human trafficking. Employees or workers at a marijuana licensed premises must report to a law enforcement agency or the OLCC if the employee or worker has a reasonable belief that sex trafficking or other human trafficking is occurring at the premises. Employees or workers must also report if they have a reasonable belief that a minor is employed or contracted at the premises in a manner that violates OLCC rules. House Bill 4074 has an effective date of April 15th, 2022, and required the commission to adopt rules to implement this legislation. On April 21st, 2022, the commission voted to take temporary action by adopting OAR 845-025-5585. The temporary rule went into effect on April 25th, 2022, and is set to expire on October 21st, 2022. Upon approval, OAR 845-025-5585 will become permanent on October 22nd, 2022. And happy to answer any questions.
Is there any discussion? Nicole, I just have one question that, there was a letter in here from, I don't know what was it, the sex workers of, well, you know what I'm talking about. Saying that there was a potential, forget about the legality of it, but there was a potential, problem that they had with this. Can you just tell me your feelings on that and go ahead.
Sure, Chair Rosenbaum. The Oregon Sex Workers Committee, as well as Emerge Law Group, who is representing this group pro bono, did reach out to us a few days before all of the public comments were due. They did have some concerns about the language regarding the definition of sex trafficking and or human trafficking, which we are using the federal definition for. So we will be reaching out to them to further discuss this. We will also be opening rulemaking on the alcohol side to adjust the similar rules so that they align, and there will be opportunity in the near future to make adjustments if needed. But this group did come to us sort of last minute, so we are working with them to sort of combine the definitions on both sides and make it a little more clear. But we do feel that the federal definition that we are using currently accurately reflects that.
I don't think there's any particular issue today, but it certainly could be in the future. Thank you. I need a motion. Here.
Chair,
Yes, Commissioner. We miss you here. And Commissioner
I
Mullane.
everyone, I loved it there last month when I was there at the Pendleton Roundup. I do have a question though. A stakeholder expressed concern when reporting sex trafficking activity and did not feel safe in doing so. How are they to be supported? From retaliation, let's say.
Chair Rosenbaum, commissioners, I'm not sure if Amanda or anybody on the marijuana subject matter expert team might be on the call or better be able to better answer this question. I unfortunately don't have the answer to that question.
Well, I move to adopt OAR 845-025-5585 effective October 22, 2022.
Jason.
Yeah, good morning. Before you, Commissioner Porter, in response to your question, for the record, Jason Hansen, Director of Compliance. So there's just a little background on the way that individuals can report human trafficking with us. There's opportunity to report trafficking events either anonymously or non-anonymously. They can choose not to provide information if they have any concerns around, exposing their identities. The work that we do at OLCC will be to ensure that the information we receive is connected to a licensee of ours or, anything that we oversee or regulate. The work that we do then, though, is to transfer it over to the appropriate law enforcement agency to actually investigate human trafficking. There is a lot of concerns that have been expressed about people, reporting to law enforcement, concerns about their own employment, what might happen. This is a reality, and it's something that I think, the advantage of having OLCC involved in receiving these reports, because we have a different type of relationship with these folks, is helpful. Because, again, we're not the ones actually investigating this activity. We're working with the Department of Justice, the experts, representing the state around human trafficking, to continue to build relationships and build training that we can provide both our staff and the industry. It'll be a ongoing project. There's a specific labor trafficking task force trying to address labor trafficking that I'm on, the Attorney General Task Force. Also looking at some legislative options for this next session. But, it is a real concern, people that, have a concern for retaliation.
We wouldn't be here doing this if it wasn't.
Absolutely, absolutely. And all we can say is you have the option to report information to us anonymously. And then that's an important option for people. And as, of course, if they have fear of retaliation, they can let us know that, and that will go down in our report to be passed on. It's not something that we directly regulate or oversee the actual activity itself. So we don't get too involved in that.
Thank you. What's the contact information?
For people who might like to report.
Yes.
Yeah, well, number one, I would say in any way you might contact us, you can give us that report. It doesn't need to happen through one channel only. However, we do have a spot on our website that is for submitting business complaints, as well as sex trafficking, that was intended for our alcohol industry. We're currently working on expanding that to include all human types of human trafficking activity with the new legislation for the marijuana side. But, again, any way that a person might contact OLCC is a way to provide us that information, and it'll make its way through to our compliance division.
Chair.
Thank you, Jason.
Chair.
Chair, quick question, Jason, just to follow up on that. So service committees can also contact the OLCC. They don't have to go through the licensee. If they want to remain anonymous, they don't want to, for the retaliation part, they can contact OLCC directly without going through the license.
That's correct, Commissioner Floyd. The expectation is that they contact us and law enforcement as well, the permitting. And so, we are that third party that they can contact instead of, just passing it off to their own employer.
Okay, I think the vote, there's a motion's already on the table, so we can vote.
Commissioner Curran? Yes. Commissioner Doherty?
Yes.
Commissioner Boyd? Yes. Commissioner Thomas-Leonard?
Yes.
Commissioner Salinas?
Yes.
Commissioner Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Rosenbaum?
Yes. Very good.
All right, thank you, Chair Rosenbaum. That's all I have for today.
Thank you, Nicole. Compliance, ratification by the commission of the stipulated settlement agreement, Victoria.
Good morning.
Good morning. If there's no objection by the commissioners, I think we'll take these separately. Let's start off with Voice Pioneer Club, please.
I'm sorry, Commissioner, I could not hear if you had a question there.
Will give us a little background on each one of them.
Sure. So we have 3 alcohol violation settlements before you today. The first, Royce Pioneer Club, is primarily the liquor liability expiration. Would you like me to say anything more about Royce Pioneer Club?
Commissioners have any questions on this? No. Okay, so we're gonna take each one of these separately and vote on. So Commissioner,
I move to ratify Roy's Pioneer Club LLC stipulated settlement agreement as proposed by staff.
Commissioner Kern,
Yes.
Commissioner Dory,
yes.
Commissioner Floyd,
Yes.
Commissioner DePalma Porter. Commissioner Levis,
Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
Commissioner Baum,
Yes.
Chair Rosenbaum,
Yes. All right, let's take Bayway Tavern.
Okay, Bayway Tavern. This stems from two separate reports. The first of which was a referral from Tillamook County Sheriff's Office. They referred an incident to us involving a situation where a licensee's employee, a single bartender, was working and OLCC charged permitting a visibly intoxicated person to consume alcohol and separately permitting disorder for a fight that ensued by the visibly intoxicated patron. Separately, there was a separate report about permitting minor employees at the premises. When investigators went to inspect this, they found that the premises, which had a restaurant portion and a bar portion, they had closed the restaurant, only the bar remained open. And this is something that OLCC would normally expect a licensee to report to us. And so instruction was given at that point to reopen the restaurant and/or we would need to make changes to the minor posting. And in that inspection, 2 service permit expirations were discovered.
Commissioners have any questions? You might have mentioned it and I might have not heard you, but the licensee closed the restaurant portion without notifying the OLCC. The question is, are they required now, which I assume, to open that restaurant before anything else goes on?
Chair, the licensee voluntarily reopened that portion of the premises that had been closed for several months. Our normal expectation is that if a licensee would want to make those sort of changes to the premises, they would notify us ahead of time, which did not happen here. So the issue is now moot. Does that answer your question?
I'm not sure. In order for them to continue, the restaurant portion is open now, right?
Correct. It was closed for several months without OLCC's knowledge, and they were still permitting minor employees in the premises. And then that was the impetus for the report that OLCC received.
Because that's by statute, you have to have the food as well as the restaurant.
Yes, and let me clarify, the kitchen was open. They were only serving food in the bar area. So there was not a food service issue. It was just, yeah.
Okay, that wasn't clear to me. Okay, I need a motion on Bayway Lounge Tavern.
Chair,
Commissioner,
I move to ratify Bayway Tavern settlement agreement as proposed by staff.
Commissioner Kern,
Yes.
Commissioner Doherty,
yes.
Commissioner Floyd,
Yes.
Commissioner DePalma Porter,
Yes.
Commissioner Levis,
Yes.
Yes.
Chair Rosenbaum.
Yes. Tiki Lounge.
Okay, so Tiki Lounge, this is a history case, and so it's a history of serious and persistent problems. In addition, there are several violations in addition to the history case, including failure to evict patrons, failure to provide evidence when requested, and make sure I get them all here. And permitting marijuana consumption on the premises. And so in this case, OLCC was pursuing a hearing. We got close to the hearing, we were contacted by licensee's attorney. They had very earnestly started making some changes to the premises and were requesting that we consider a settlement. In AHD, the case presenters spoke with the local inspector and the regional manager. And it is the opinion of the local public safety team that yes, that the licensees over the course of the last year or so have been making sincere steps to bring the premises under control. But it is a very serious case.
Commissioner Carter?
I don't know if I should be the first one to start. I'm likely to go here longer. I defer a lot as you have been efficient and the work that they've done in getting stipulated settlement agreement. There are significant restrictions and conditions now put into place that I do feel comfortable that these conditions should help to resolve the issues that have been going on. I realize Commissioner, or the chair, is going to have some issues with what has happened on this. And I agree with bad actors. We don't want bad actors in business. It's not good for the state. It's not good for the health and safety of our community. But I'm inclined to vote yes on this because I know the amount of work. I'm evident by the stipulated settlement agreement, the length of it, the amount of conditions that are contained in it. But I would say, I hope that we follow up to make sure that we visit back and say, see if these conditions are being followed up on. And that would be the only note that I was going to make to this agency, that we continue to oversee them and not forget about them.
Sure. I'm just gonna, thank you, Commissioner Curran. I've got some questions about this, about how long we've been involved with it and the history. These Cat 1 violations, and there's a history of this, and these are serious violations. We've been working with them all along for a period of time, and they just have not complied. And secondly, it appears that they conceal potential evidence from us. We're doing our investigation. It really, frankly, breaks my head. They're refusing to give evidence, and they're hiding potential evidence. Could you address that? And now, probably we can't let the development speak to offering if they've been resistant to us.
Commissioner Doherty, it was a little hard to hear you, but if I understand, you would like me to speak to the violation concerning the evidence. Is that correct? Commissioner Doherty, it was difficult to hear you, but if I understand, you'd like me to speak on the charge concerning withholding evidence.
Yes, withholding evidence, refusing to give us discussion of it, and concealing evidence.
Thank you. Yes. So in this case, licensee was sent a request to provide certain video footage from the premises. They did provide, they responded to that request. However, there were camera angles missing and there was time missing. I cannot say whether or not this was intentional. What I can say is that licensee admitted that they were not personally very good with operating their security equipment and were relying on another person to pull this information for OLCC. So that is what I can say about that. They were responsive, but it was not complete information what the inspector was asking for.
Thank you. Commissioner Rubel.
Good morning, this is Commissioner Rawl. I'm likely to also vote yes, with the work that the chief does. However, this organization has been in existence for a number of years. Right now, they remind me of another organization that was in Eugene. That owner cried about somebody being there for 100 years. And it took someone getting killed, or we had enough material to take their license away. So I don't see this individual as contrite as they may be now because they got caught. I was contrite as a kid when I got caught too. So now they've been caught. And they want to do better in our eyes to keep their license. So I want to stress upon how important it is to me that we check on these individuals regularly. Because I want to do your work. I hate undoing your work. The next time I want to do your work. Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Paul. Yes, and I will just note, I should have added this, that in the event that the settlement agreement is ratified by the commission, it is our standard practice that the inspector for this premises will go sit down with the staff at this premises and review the restrictions and make sure that they're very clearly aware of what is expected, which I believe they already are based on our settlement discussions. So your point is very well taken.
Chair, I did have one follow-up question. It's my understanding, if I remember correctly, that a violation of a condition would be a cat one. That if they violate any of the conditions that are being imposed upon them, that's automatically a category one violation.
Commissioner Curran, that is correct. A violation of one of these restrictions in the settlement agreement would be a category 1 violation. And I would like to just draw the commission's attention to finding which one it is here. There's a restriction in our settlement here requiring them to provide evidence within a timely fashion and to retain video evidence for 30 days. So I feel that that is a very important part of the settlement agreement that I would like the commissioners to be aware of.
I should know that there's not going to be any leeway if there's violations for the violations.
Any other questions? The Victoria and to the entire staff, there's a very strong message being sent by the commissioner, including myself. There's an old saying, if you like sausage or legislation, you shouldn't be around when it is being made. Well, in this case, we should be around, and we are interested in it. And we're coming up, I think, to the breaking point of where some of the commissioners might say in the future, I'm not going to vote for this. I'm going to vote for this today too, with all of the reservations and all of the understanding that we're very concerned. And quite frankly, I hope Mark is listening to this. This type of situation should be pointed out locally in their area that this is unacceptable and it's going to change. And we're going to look very closely at this. Now, Steve, how do we, this is the whole point of it. I mean, this is a classic example. You know that we knew this was coming. How do we follow up on this to make sure that they really are? Look, this commission is very interested in protecting the businesses and the licenses of the people in the state. We've made no bones about it. We're concerned about it. We want to protect the businesses, but there's a certain point where it doesn't work. So how are we going to know what's going on with this?
Hopefully responsive with a couple comments here. One, this is the shortest leash we have, right? This is the most intense scrutiny you can be under as a licensee. with this if you don't meet the conditions, and we're going to be looking at them. We know we have a problem operator. We know we have a problem area, right? The history of public safety events around it. So, that gives us the ability to peek inside, and if we see something going wrong outside the restrictions, we know it's category 1 and we can proceed on that basis. And I want to say, the commission staff there, I'm responsible. I signed off on these and sent this to you with the review we've had by public safety. It's a tough call on these, right? When you move them forward. You could, as an alternative, easy enough for you to say, Steve, we don't want to settle. Let's run it through the process. Now we've got to prove up. We've got to take them out. We've got to go through the administrative hearings to do this. We're likely to get another operator in the same area with the same public history, public safety surrounding problems. This is a tool to work with the operator there to see if we can successfully put them in place to make the improvements needed to operate in an area that has had additional problems. So tough call. I think it's appropriate that we put them on the shortest leash possible. We could have made a different decision here. We'd have to see what the outcome was in the hearings process after NALJ indicates it was argued. Hopefully I give some context for it.
Thank you. Okay, with that. I need a motion.
Chair,
Commissioner.
I move to ratify the stipulated settlement agreement for Team Sports Action Rail LLC as proposed by staff.
Commissioner Curran,
Yes.
Commissioner Glenn,
Yes.
Commissioner Floyd.
Yeah.
Commissioner Ducombe Porter,
Yes,
Commissioner Levis,
Yes.
Commissioner Ball,
Yes.
Chair Rosenbaum.
Yes. Last but not least, is the stipulated settlement agreement for liquor license applicant on Roswell. I want to say. Victoria.
Thank you, Chair Rosenbaum. So the liquor licensing application was submitted by Roswell 2 LLC, doing business as Foster Strip. This is an application, new applicant that is taking over a business that was previously existed at this location. The former licensee did lose their license, surrendered it as part of a history of serious and persistent problems case. This new applicant, when they submitted their application, gave us their plan to control the premises, knowing that the area had some problems. Licensing reviewed it and determined that they could issue the license with restrictions. And so those restrictions revolve drink limitations, security, the DPSST security on the premises, and hours of operation, limiting the hours of operation.
Commissioners.
Question, and Steve, maybe this is a little bit more towards you. When do we ever loop in the city? When do we ever bring in the city in regards to, this is a problem area. Foster is a major problem area. We've got some hot spots in the city of Portland and all across the state, but especially in Portland. Foster, and so in regards to a community livability standpoint, in regards to a safety standpoint, this is a problem. This is a problem area, and we're just foregoing one licensee, tossing over to another licensee with this problem. This is a problem child, has a history of serious and persistent problems. When do we ever loop in, if we ever do, the city of Portland to say, hey, yeah, we don't think a strip club is the best place for this community? And I don't know how much this commission has, weight in this as a first step.
Rosenbaum, Commissioner Floyd, I don't think we really have a role in that myself. I'd have to think about it a little longer, but I don't see it. It's really a local decision on business practices. We got a pretty extensive free speech constitution in Oregon. So I think all the zoning issues really are on the city side. With respect to the problem issues, we've had the zones downtown, which has more special status. We really do rely on our efforts and our work in coordination with Portland Police Bureau to make sure that we get the reports of the surrounding public safety activities so that we can take action. And that's really the most important city role in getting us to action is that. You're saying, can the city take action versus what they think about doing with zoning and how they do that? I think that's really on their side of the equation. I'm not familiar enough to give you the answer about,
Right.
business practices and equal opportunity.
Well, I know as a licensee, we need to renew our license. There used to be, in the city of Portland, it used to be the Office of Neighborhood Development. I think it's called something different now, but, why wouldn't they get involved to say, hey, this is a serious problem area. We don't want to swap, we don't, strip club would not be because of the nature of the business and problems that come with it. I know this is a loaded question for you guys. I
But
guess it's
on that piece, I just want to be, I don't think can't discriminate based on the type of business. I don't think they can. I think that's what's been resolved in Oregon law for some time. in this
We're
country.
not discriminating on the type of business, we're discriminating on the fact that we have an obligation as a commission to look at that and make decisions on it. I mean, look at, this is the first one that I'm gonna vote yes on in a long time, because there's no related parties involved in it. There's no brother or sister, I always vote no, because when we have a problem like that, and they're just giving it over to a cousin, you know who's gonna run the thing anyway.
Right.
So you have a very legitimate question in terms of saying, okay, when do we stop doing this? Because there is a problem here. And, why did they come to us? Because we're the final say on it.
right,
And if we say no, that's legitimate,
right.
because there's an overriding public interest involved.
There's a problem in Portland, in the city of Portland, and, this is probably a little bit more rhetorical, and I'm kind of getting on my moral high horse here, but I wish the community would get involved with this. I wish, it's just frustrating, because I hope we don't. I hope with these conditions and these restrictions that we impose on this licensee, that we'll see it change a little bit. But I'm not that encouraged.
For the people in the audience, for the people on this call, you probably don't realize it, but we are prohibited, we being this commission, we are prohibited from talking to each other about these issues in private. We only have an opportunity to talk about this at a public meeting like this. So this is our opportunity, and believe me, we adhere to it. We do not talk about any of these issues in private. So when Commissioner Floyd brings this up and saying, this is a problem, this is the first time we have an opportunity to discuss it. It's in front of you, but it's our first time we have an opportunity to discuss it. And I agree with you. And the question really comes into play is, when does this commission come to the point of saying, okay, let's not do this? And then it forces the city to a certain extent to look at it. So we're all very responsible on this. We don't want to interfere with the business operation of a private business, but when do we get to that point?
Correct. And Jason, Steve, this is our opportunity to have a conversation up here, so
That,
don't feel that
well, I do have the response just in the process if it's helpful, especially the coordination with local governments. So Chair, members of the Commission, Jason Hansen, Director of Compliance. On the licensing side, there is a step in the process for the applicant to receive local government governing body approval for the business. It's their opportunity to get that, they have to apply that with us, with their application. We often coordinate with local governments. We receive feedback, on a routine basis. Oftentimes, unfortunately, the things that they wish we would hold the applicant accountable for, we can't. It's not in our denial criteria to review for such things. Good example would be the type of business they want to operate. That's not for us to evaluate. We don't have that authority. We look at the liquor license, the type of operation they want to have, and the activities around alcohol in the area. This very process, what you have before you is a good example of, I think, a healthy evaluation process in that this organization, this applicant meets denial criteria, but there is a responsibility for us to evaluate for good cause that might overcome that denial criteria. And like the chair just mentioned, no connection to the previous licensee. These restrictions that are going to be put on this license, like Commissioner Curran mentioned, you violate these restrictions, it's a category 1 cancelable offense. So they carried a little more weight in that process. But, at the end of the day, we are available to local governing bodies. We take all the feedback we can. We use what we can based on what we're allowed to use, which is very, frustrating, I will say, for many local governing bodies when they want to try to establish certain networks and neighborhoods and try to monitor the types of activities. I mean, they do try to, implement restrictions or try to ask us to do that. We just can't do that. City of Portland, especially, really struggling with resources right now. We have our inspectors, we're short-staffed as well, but there's, different neighborhood associations that we connect with, and as we're able, we attend the meetings that Old Town, for example, does a pretty good organization in trying to, manage their business district, their entertainment district. They're pretty organized. I'm not so sure if that's the same case on the east side. So, we would absolutely, love to engage more with the community. If they have interest, they can reach out to us and we'll make sure we have staff that are on the ground that can attend those meetings and help explain what our powers are and what they aren't.
Yeah, this is really more directed towards the city and the community. I know this commission has to do what this commission has to do, right? I understand that. But it's a frustrating.
I think it's wonderful that you brought it up, but the interesting thing is that Jason's right. You are much more restricted than we are, because when it comes back to us, if we ever decide to say no, they're gonna have to sue us in order to get it. It's gonna take 2 years and a whole lot of money. And, somewhere along the line, and this is, again, the only way we have this discussion is in public and in front of you. But the only way that we have a say on this is if it gets so egregious that we all say no. And then they're gonna have to turn around and, it's the patent system in this country. The little guy doesn't have a chance because once the patent is filed, the big guys take it over and say, okay, go ahead and sue us. It'll cost you $100 million. And by the time you're done with it, you'll be broke anyway. So thank you for bringing it up, Commissioner.
Chair, or could I ask Jason, with the criterion, the report that we do, is there anything, and maybe it's more of a question just to think about, but like, we've had this issue come up before, it is specifically, I'm thinking downtown Portland, where there was even, folks that didn't even meet the potential standard for denial. Is there anything we could look at as commissioners, maybe in the criterion report, that would give us a little bit more latitude to make these decisions? Because that's the only thing I'm thinking is like, maybe there's just like, the criterion report seems pretty good and it's obviously been a standard tested over time, but is there anything we could add to it that would give us some coverage to maybe make these decisions when we feel we need to?
Chair, members of the commission, that's a great question. Commissioner Miletus, I'm not sure right now. I do know our standard is pretty consistent. We look at every available, criteria that could mitigate the concern or aggravate it. We do look at, you know, I'm not sure, and I think the situations that you usually presented with aren't all, they're very unique, based on the business type, the operation, the people involved. I don't know if there's I'm open, obviously, to discussing that further, if you have ideas, certainly.
No, you guys have done great. I'm just trying to think out loud, and I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but it's just something, maybe there's, because I don't want to be going outside of our scope, but maybe it is something that we can, because we are in a sense the final say, but you know, we don't want to get out over our skis, but just a thought.
I just want to point out, and you know this well, Commissioner Miletus, right? It's a two-edged sword in that, because if you think of all the local involvement that doesn't want to cite a liquor business somewhere, and how often this commission confronts that part of the decision with our clear, more objective criteria, I think that's an important thing, why you don't have as much leeway in how you look at it, and we look at it more objectively in that way, so that we can make decisions based on what we said are vital to public safety and the operation of that business, sort of regardless of other surrounding factors. So, yeah, it's possible to open that up. It creates different dynamics either with us or with cities and our relationship between.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Jason.
I don't know if the motion, Commissioner Floyd, I'm gonna give you the.
I'll give you.
And thank you for bringing it up.
I move to ratify the stipulated settlement agreement for Foster Scripps as proposed by staff.
Commissioner Kern,
Yes.
Commissioner Doherty,
Yes.
Commissioner Floyd,
Yes.
Commissioner Jerome,
Yes.
Commissioner Miletus,
Yes,
Chair Hall,
Yes.
Chair Rosenbaum,
Yes. Thank you for that discussion. Those yeses might turn to no in the future. Distillers panel, we have a commission education on local issues and update on the health of the region's distillery industry. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I'll keep on reminding me of this. The next is the distillers panel. We'll have education on local issues and update on health of the regional distillery industry. David Bello, Tia Betzlow, Brad Irwin, and Dan Stein. Come on up. Isn't there a game show that says, come on up? What is that? Too long ago.
also make sure that we have something.
Good morning, welcome,
Good morning.
and thank you.
Okay, I'll start us off. I'm David Ballou. I'm with Hood River Distillers, President and CEO of Hood River Distillers. I've been there about 2 years now. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for the opportunity to kind of let you peek a little bit behind the curtain of what makes us tick and a little bit about what we are, who we are, how long we've been around, and you know, just kind of what's going on with Hood River Distillers and pandemic economy and everything else that's been happening. So I think the first thing that I'd like to do is give you a foundational view of what we are and what's important to us. And the first thing I would say is start with our mission. And the mission of Hood River Distillers is to bring the spirit of Hood River to the world, wherever your world is. And it's kind of a double entendre, right? Spirit of Hood River, because there's a definite vibe around Hood River, but then also the spirits of Hood River that we happen to produce. Our vision is to be a revered family-owned spirits company, widely recognized for our excellent product quality, innovative thinking, and respectful business behavior. Our people are exceptional, our brands are inspirational, and our customer relationships are valued. And as we do that, the foundation of everything we do and our North Star and what we hold ourselves to are our values as a company. And our values as a company is we do the right thing. And that's honesty, it's integrity, it's trying to be good citizens of not just Hood River, Oregon, but the US and the world as a whole. We encourage involvement. We are relationship builders. I think that's what's really important about us being here today. The relationships that we have in the state of Oregon are really paramount because our business is driven heavily in the state of Oregon. We adapt and we evolve, and we'll talk a little bit about the age of our company, and you'll get an idea. You can't be almost 90 years old if you don't adapt and evolve. We take responsibility, and then we're dedicated to a balanced work life. So, who are we? And that's a little bit about who we are, but what are we? We were founded in 1934, so we're knocking on 90 years old. As a company, we are family owned and operated and have been our entire history. We are headquartered in Hood River, and proud to say we are the largest and oldest distillery in the Pacific Northwest. We're DSP OR1. So we're the first distilled spirits permit license in the state of Oregon. I think one thing that makes us really unique is entrepreneurship. Back in 1934, there were apples and pears that were floating down the river, and they would float down the river and float into the ocean. And somebody looked at that and saw an opportunity, and they saw an opportunity to make brandy. And so we started off as a fruit brandy producer. So that's kind of cool. And I think when you look back at the foundations of a company, to be where we were then and to be where we are today, as we continue to look to reinvent ourselves and evolve. It's unique to find a company, again, almost 90 years old, that is in the life cycle that we are, and that is re-evolving and refining and redefining and moving forward. So as we continue on with that, our portfolio is one that is very unique. We compete in almost every category. So we have the value brands, which are the lower tier, which, by the way, we've been in full support and appreciate the floor pricing initiative that went through for several reasons. Number one, it's the right thing to do. I think it was the right thing to do for the community and the business as a whole. And number two, that category found itself really racing to the bottom from a price standpoint, and total transparency competitively. It's tough to compete there when the big guys come in and all they do is drive the price down, and they drive the price down because they don't care. It means nothing. For us, it's vital and it's critical to our business. So we support that and thank you for that. But that's a little bit about kind of who we are. But I think the most important thing is just kind of chatting a little bit and, kind of talking about what's happening at Hood River and what's happening in Eastern Oregon. I think like a lot of businesses, we're facing staffing issues and staffing challenges. To find skilled and experienced workers is difficult. To maintain and keep experienced and skilled workers is difficult. Hood River is not the cheapest place in the world to live. So, it's so economically, it's tough for us to find it in our town. Most of our workers in our plant are from 10 to 15 miles away. So that's a little bit of an issue for us, but we deal with it. Transportation costs, nothing new for a lot of businesses. The transportation costs they've been tough. I mean, gas prices, getting trucks, everything that you would have to deal with from the supply chain has been difficult. Glass, cardboard, labels, corks, everything that you could imagine. There's been a bunch of starts and stops in the supply chain standpoint from that perspective. Luckily for us being in Hood River and being the size that we are, because we do business in 43 states and 7 countries. So it's not just an Oregon business, but obviously founded here and foundational here. But we're not tied into the seasonal economy of Hood River. And it is a very seasonal economy. There's sometimes that you can roll a bowling ball down the street and won't hit anybody the entire length of the street. There are other times that you couldn't even get it out of the bag to roll it at anybody. I mean, it's a very vibrant community, but very, very seasonal. The pandemic in 2020 hit, I think a lot of companies, we had two choices to make. You can make the decision to survive, or you can make the decision to thrive. And we consciously made the decision of what's the other side going to look like? And how do we position our portfolio, our company, our people to thrive as the pandemic continues and as the pandemic breaks and we come out the other side. So that's been what we've done. We're a company that is, I've said, we're redefining ourselves. We're looking at the premium side of the brands and the portfolio in the world of spirits. And we've come up with a lot of really fun, exciting brands that we're just thrilled to be able to bring to the world. We've reinvented ourselves because in 2018, the brand sold Pendleton Proximo, which was the next best partner to take that brand to new heights. But that was a time of introspection because we had to decide what do we want to be. And as we talk about 90 years old and being in a beginning of a growth pattern again, that's where we find ourselves. But it's a fun time. So that's a little bit about Hood River. And again, thank you for having us.
I own a chemical company, and my supply chain has drastically changed over the last, any business, the same thing. The problem that I have is, I want you to address this, that's what I'm saying.
Yep.
The problem I have is that it's changed from China to other countries to Southeast Asia. But I'm looking desperately for domestic solutions to this problem, and I can't find them yet. So would you, when, during your comments, will you address it? Is your supply chain changing that way? And you,
We see it. I mean, domestically, there aren't glass producers that can handle what we need. So it is an international business from there. I think smart people will see the opportunity. And I think we will find in time that will, good business people find opportunities, and that is an opportunity here. But it's not just glass. It is literally the corrugated cardboard. It is the labels. It's everything that we have to deal with. And it's interesting. I don't think we all realized how connected everything really was until it all started breaking down. You look at all the little components and I didn't even think about all the little components. Our staff thinks about it every day. That's what they do in the plant, but man, everything. Just one delay in everything just starts to trickle down of an entirety. And quite honestly, we're pretty good size, but we're really small. And in the scope of things, some of the big folks get some of the, get some priority as they should, because they're big companies, but it's impacted everybody. And it's something that we think we see the light at the end of the tunnel. And then it kind of gets a little further away, and then it gets a little bit closer, but we're not there yet. And I think we're probably 18 months to 2 years away from supply chains still getting back to whatever normal ends up being.
if Beijing closes down, we're all in big trouble.
Well, we think about that. We're looking for alternatives outside.
That's why we're looking for domestic opportunities. Everybody's looking for it. They're not there.
Mhm.
Is this 90 years old, all in the same family?
The primary owners of the families now have been there about 50 plus of the 90 years. But they were still involved, the family was involved before they became a jewelry at that point.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
It's companies that last that long.
There aren't many.
Yeah. Well, I'm part of one that's 74 years old.
As long as I don't mess up, we hope it's 100.
Exactly. Good luck. Well beyond the.
Good morning. I'm Tia Bledsoe, the Brand Heritage Director for Pendleton Whiskey, a brand within the Proximo portfolio. And I'm very fortunate to say I've been with the brand since its inception in 2003 in varying roles and companies. My colleague, Charlie Thorpe, who's the Northwest Region Director, was unable to be here, so he asked me to fill in. And I'm going to give you more of the marketing side of our business. And I just need some bells and whistles. So again, I'll speak more to the Pendleton whiskey. Although Proximo has a full portfolio of spirits, the Pendleton brand is where I spend my time. So the idea of Pendleton whiskey was really born from a conversation around the Pendleton Roundup. And what simply started as a licensing agreement quickly became our brand story. So an iconic rodeo that lent its name, its bucking horse, its letterbuck rally cry to what we now know as Pendleton whiskey. So we're very proud of our heritage and the fact that what we've created with one rodeo has really allowed us to support the sport of rodeo as a whole. So we've been fortunate to grow the brand across the US and Canada and developed 3 additional expressions in the last 11 years. So we have our Pendleton Midnight, which is a 90 proof blended whiskey with a portion aged in American brandy barrels. And it offers kind of a fruit forward characteristics with a smooth finish. Pendleton 1910 is aged 12 years, is 100% rye with a spicy kick. And the 1910 name pays homage to the first Pendleton Roundup. We also have our Pendleton Director's Reserve, which was a single year limited edition launched back in 2005. But because of the success, we've been able to release it as an annual release, honoring the Pendleton Roundup directors from both past and present. And this is a 20-year aged whiskey. And as I mentioned earlier, what started as a partnership with one iconic rodeo has really allowed the Pendleton whiskey brand to grow to what we consider the whiskey of Western lifestyle and athletics. We're very fortunate to hold official whiskey designations with 2 premier professional sports organizations, the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association and the Professional Bull Riders. We sponsor over 400 events each year and consider event marketing to really be the backbone of how we have grown the brand and really is the model that Proximo has adopted even moving forward, which makes me very happy. So a few reasons to believe that we've given our sales team when it comes to Western athletics and event marketing. Rodeo fans are 75% more likely to drink Canadian whiskey than the average US alcohol consumer. PBR fans 21 and over consume whiskey at bars and restaurants more so than in their homes, especially when compared to the national average. And 65% of consumers purchase a product or service promoted at an event. So again, really reasons to believe why we wrapped our arms around Western athletics and event marketing. So specific to what we do here in Oregon, and more specifically Eastern Oregon, we try and support as many events as we can. From rodeos to golf tournaments, to music festivals, to bike races. We're so appreciative of the Eastern Oregon community, and not only Pendleton, Oregon, but the greater surrounding communities as well. And when COVID hit and events had to cancel or postpone, we appreciated the quick thinking of a few community leaders here locally that came together and developed the Letterbuck Cares. And our business model of event support was affected too, but we knew we had to step up and give back to the region and state that helped us start. So we contributed to the fund and launched a marketing campaign around it to really help generate awareness and help support not only, the events, but also the businesses that had to shut down and employees that no longer had paychecks. We also launched a limited edition in 2021, the Champions Edition, which is only sold in Oregon and is released each year in conjunction with the Pendleton Roundup. This limited edition was created to celebrate the volunteers that come together, not only from this community, but around the state and beyond, and to support and bring this iconic event to life. We get numerous requests from our sales team across the country to sell this product outside of Oregon, but we are holding firm in our belief that this should be exclusive to this great community and state. And lastly, one of the pillars of our marketing efforts is to bring greater awareness to the community of Pendleton and the Pendleton Roundup. We launched the Stories of Pendleton this past summer, which was a content video shoot that captured people from the community and really their perspective on what makes Pendleton and the Pendleton Roundup so special. So I'd like to share this couple-minute teaser video with you. And if you have time to get on our website and watch the full, it's like 12 minutes long, but it'll give you the full picture.
These iconic places filled with
2 times a year. Right? That is not what it is. Down on the grass and find around that. Hopefully you smell breath in your grass.
All of a sudden, we've got 50 or 100,000 people here.
When House Whiskey came along, people wanted to know where the main city was from, like that. That's right. Go here. They want to live with Saudi to keep the living. Trying to keep that tradition going. Back then, it was what we did. If people didn't like it or didn't believe it, they left town. Other than that, it becomes around them.
The hotel in California, they would open up the sun shop for the countless sale.
One of the original Pendleton whiskey cocktails is the pistol whip. People love them. We don't really have to put anything for it.
Watching them go to where this is there, it was fascinating. I was watching how they used to just from 1910 to today. We know we have a partner that is industry wide. We have a partner that is committed to the Western LA, and we have a partner that has the same values and virtues, hard work, integrity, honesty, all those things. You get to be a part of Pendleton, what you're here.
Being a part of the tradition is pretty special.
They get the taste of Pendleton and then might later hear the story of it.
I think when you boil it all down to the end here. Of people.
So thank you. Again, this is just a snapshot of how appreciative we are of doing business here and having this be our home market. And so any questions? I'm happy to help.
Commission, I was just talking to Commissioner, we were at the last roundup, and you guys had really sharp t-shirts. So if you want the chairman of the Liquor Control Commission to market, you guys, I take a size line.
All the t-shirt costs less than $50.
Under $35. $35.
Yeah, I gotta go to the 50.
So it's under $35. I assume it is.
Oh, yes,
And if any
yes,
of
well
you want
under.
one, I tell you, go get it. That's
Yes.
good with me.
Let Jennifer know. She knows how to get a hold of me. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Brad Irwin, and I own Oregon Spirit Distillers in Bend. We've been in business for 13 years. I also have served on the board of the Oregon Distillers Guild for the last 6 years. Right now, I hold the legislative chair. So I have a lot of contact with the small distilleries throughout the entire state. I met with a bunch of them on Monday just to talk about some of our issues. But today I'll talk about Oregon Spirit Distillers. We produce mostly whiskey, and we are very proud of our Oregon agricultural roots. As you know, whiskey is made from grain, and in Oregon, we grow some great grain. We're going to consume just less than 1 million pounds of grain this year at Oregon Spirit Distillers. And we're relatively medium sized for the craft distilling industry. So there are a lot of other distilleries in Oregon that are consuming a lot of grain, a lot of the fantastic agricultural products that we have in Oregon. So one of the things that I'd really like to highlight about that that Oregon distilling provides, there's 3 pillars that it provides. It's not just production. It's not just the jobs related to the production of spirits, but it's also the agriculture. And finally, it's the tourism that's associated with with it. We get a lot of visitors, and from out of state. And it's one of the things that Oregon can be proud of is that we make great spirits. All of us, there are 80 distilleries in Oregon at the end of 2021. And that is more than the state of Kentucky. There's 71 distilleries in Kentucky. There's 80 in Oregon. I think that's pretty incredible. I just visited Kentucky. Their distilleries are larger. But ours are growing faster. We had, most of us survived the pandemic. We did lose a few distilleries due to the pandemic, but most of us survived. We were very thankful that in 2021, we passed SB 316. And that was a legislative bill that changed the compensation structure for distilling tasting rooms and reduced our burden and allowed us to be profitable in our tasting rooms. And we're very thankful for that. It does have a 6-year sunset. And upon talking to other distilleries, I'm not the only one who really appreciates it. It makes a huge difference in our business. So I hope that when time comes to look at that sunset, we can make that a permanent change in how we're compensating. When I talk to other distilleries, particularly smaller ones, what we're seeing is difficulty getting outside of the Oregon market. We're successful in Oregon. If you, in all categories except for 2, we can't make tequila in Oregon, but in all categories, craft spirits produced in Oregon are about 8% of what is consumed throughout the state. And I think that's a significant number, 8%, you know, that's a good market share. The exception to that is gin. In Oregon consumers buy 25% locally produced gin. That's an amazing number. And there are some great gin producers to be proud of. But most of us struggle to get outside the state. We produce world-class spirits. We have access to some of the greatest resources. Our water throughout the state is incredible. The grain and the fruit is incredible. But when we go into the national marketplace, we're having a hard time finding that market share. And with 80 distilleries, you have to see national sales and international sales. There's not, Oregon only has 4.2 million people. And if we're going to appreciate this industry, and it's an important industry for us because it does hit all 3 of those pillars: production, agriculture, and tourism. We need to be successful in the marketplace. And we believe that there is a position that the state could hold that would help us promote it. If you look back 30 years ago, Oregon wine was not a successful industry. And we created an Oregon Wine Board that had 2 main purposes. One, to help each other produce better wine, and then create a brand of Oregon. And now, if you travel anywhere in the world and ask if Oregon wine is good, people agree that we have a great industry. And look at what the industry is today. And I believe that
It's a hell of a success.
amazing. And there's some people who should be really proud of that 30-year effort. And it was through teamwork with both at both the state level and at the producer level. And I believe that we have a lot of momentum right now, and now is a great time to create a board to do that, to brand Oregon spirits in the national and the international market. I believe we can get there. Questions?
When would you like us to help get that out?
It'll be legislative, and we will create a board, and I met with Elizabeth Stein Hayward, Representative Nose, and I know that we'll get legislative champions, so it'll come legislatively. But I hope that all of you recognize the significance of it and are cooperative. So as we move forward with this session.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dan Stein from Stein Distillery in Joseph, right in the northeast corner of Oregon, right at the base of Wallowa Lake. My youngest son, Austin, and his wife Heather and I started our distillery in 2009. We're about the same age as Oregon Spirits, about 13 years. We started thinking about the distillery I'm also a farmer. And ship all of our products over to the river and barge it down to the river and grain especially. And we got to thinking about using our own products because they hadn't seen them. So we decided to start the distillery. And we mainly focus on whiskeys. We have some 2-year rye bourbon, blended whiskeys. Also, we have a 2 and a 5-year bourbon, a 2 and a 5-year, and a 9-year rye out. We make fruit cordials from mostly local fruit, as well as a vodka and rum. But we're a family business. We're very well supported by the town of Joseph and the county. The whole county population is about 4,000. So we're not, don't have the advantage of some of these bigger areas, but we do.
That's why it's in your home county.
No, well, there is now construction site in Ohio, but yeah, we sell most of our products, or a good half of our products, through OLCC, through the state liquor control and state warehouse. We also do have a good distributor in California, so we send a lot of whiskey to California every month, which has been a great advantage for us getting started, to have somebody that's really good about dealing with he actually distributes a lot of products for us. The shipping and all the problems that with glass, cardboard, everything else everybody's been having has been a challenge. Start thinking a year ahead, or glass company now wants me to make my orders 2 years ahead to, guarantee that I have glass, but it doesn't mean that I'm gonna get it here. My glass comes out of France. I had one order set outside the Seattle port for 6 months, and they couldn't get it into the dock to unload it, so they finally sent it back to San Diego and finally got it unloaded and shipped up to me. But it's been quite a challenge. I don't have, didn't prepare much anything. That's just pretty much what we do, and yeah, I can't think of anything else right now.
Thank you. I have a question that I ask all the time when I go to the National Association meetings, chairman, I meet with distillers from all over the world. What can we do better? Put you on the spot, but I'm not meaning to. What can we do better, seriously?
I asked the question the other day when I talked to other distillers, and in my 13-year history involved with having a relationship with OLC, I'm very impressed with the responsiveness and what you guys do in the leadership of Steve Marks. I have your association is really easy to work with. We get the answers we need. We get our products out. There's very little difficulty, and I talked to other distilleries in other states where they try and get listed with the state, and they have a much bigger challenge. So from a state level, what we do is really, what you guys do is really impressive.
So we set up here as a commission, but the matter is the staff. Tremendous, and they do. It makes us much more comfortable. We're working with some very competent.
I would say one thing is to be diligent. And what I mean by that is, you know, we are big believers in the control state system. And we're big believers of a control state system in Oregon. And I think it's going to continue to come under attack. And it was attempted this past legislative session and it didn't make it, but it's going to come back. And it's going to continue to come back. I think we need to be diligent in that because it's, there's 80 distilleries in Oregon, 8% of the overall business, it wouldn't be that high if it weren't a control state. Because you get squeezed out and you get squeezed out really easily. And this system allows us a level playing field, no matter what our size is. And that is not, it's not that way everywhere. So number one, don't take it for granted. Number two, be diligent in it. And then what can we do to help support the system? You know, the states, you know, what they're always going to talk about selection. You know, we need to be private because we'll get greater selection, greater accessibility. It's not. As a matter of fact, it's less because the big chain stores come in and take over the business and their selection is limited because their space is limited. So there's just a lot of things that really concern us about continuing with the system the way that it is currently. You know, it's always trying to be on top of your game. You know, the stores here that I've been into are nice, and that's got to happen. Educated staff, working floors happens, things that make the shopping experience for the consumers where they don't feel like they need to go to the grocery store to buy their spirits or they need to go somewhere else. So I think it's just continuing to be diligent and on top of, you know, on top of things and trying to take the aspirin before the headache.
I particularly appreciate your comments and my response to you, but you're 100% right. They're coming back, there's no question about that. My response to you, all of it, is if you know they're coming back, then you want to start planning for that contingency again. And nobody plans for the contingency. They just wait until it happens and then have to react to it. Smarter to plan for it if they are coming back.
8 years ago, Steve and I were in a meeting at a national conference. First off, it's very important that you have cooperation within your own industry. So it helps us and it helps the legislature. So 8 years ago, Steve and I are at a meeting, we're sitting at the table with a bunch of the international liquor companies. And there was 2 store chains here in Oregon that had gotten $1 million from that organization, put it about there. And breakfast, what we asked them is to get to know who you are. Or at that time, because as you remember, Governor Gismonter changed everything within our organization. By the time we left, they took $1 million back. Point is that you have very good friends internationally and nationally that like this model a lot. Whereas they may not always be in the forefront of trying to off the ballot measure or telling people no. Be aware that they are behind the scenes. If they can't get behind the scenes, say, no, we don't want to be Missouri or California or anywhere else that really like this model. It's very appreciative of us. I wish I talked way louder. So what I want to convey to you is you have good friends nationally and internationally. Part of that has been through the different leaderships that we have here is that they ask us at OLCC to keep our word to them. We have. A lot of our expansion is due to the fact that your companies and the NAFTA companies gave us information on how to grow. They really did. Analytics, which we use a lot now. We didn't have that 8 years ago, and we have it now because of the industry. So please keep working together as a team. It's good to have competitors, and it's good to be a team. And so you have some good teams out there nationally and internationally. Keep those connections open because that allows the state of Oregon and this industry to survive and thrive. So just want to let you know that they are out there. You might not see them out there all the time, but they do talk to us about how to keep this like this. Thank you.
If you're gonna take it.
You may know that Oregon's been experimenting with home delivery systems. I don't know if any of you have any comments or could speak to what that might do for your businesses.
I think that a lot of the Portland distilleries did well with it in the pandemic, and I think that it served an important function at that time to allow home delivery. I'm not so sure that there are many distilleries that are taking advantage of it any longer. It's a difficult model with pricing and changes. If you use a third-party carrier, that's difficult. Because it raises the price so much. So I think that the general consensus from the distillers is that it was an important tool during the pandemic and we appreciate it. And I don't know of anybody who's continuing to do that.
I just think it's a complex opportunity. In you know, to have proper staffing at the store level, however you want to do it to deliver the community, it's complicated, and anything that ships across state that might be from a distillery or whatever, I mean, the cost of shipping is in many cases a multiple of what the cost of the bottle actually is. So there's just a lot of complexity around trying to do it. If you look at places where it's doing well, you know, a lot of the distributors are heavily involved in ownership of the delivery companies and the other ways that it goes. So it's a complicated issue. We don't do a whole lot of that. So.
Sorry, thanks. I'm directing this one. So let me ask you this, because I do realize the model has for individual folks getting out and doing the section. How do you think, in being transparent, at OLCC, it's important a way to reach the market through the retail stores? We've been thinking about home delivery for distilled spirits from retail stores to consumers, right? Today's market, your wine to the door readily. We did provide individual distilleries that opportunity. And, you know, what would that mean for you? So I was a little interested in Jennifer asking part of this question to figure out whether there's competitive issues, which I'm not sure there are, as much as whether it's an opportunity to have you are part of, you know, the alcohol world that's maintaining our market share, not contributing to preponderance of alcohol going into the population for additional consumption, but making sure products can get to the consumer's door that want to get there. And if you had these, we, the OLCC, allowed the agent stores to orchestrate themselves. You know they're going to be very nice for it. What that would potentially mean for you and whether it has relevance or importance.
We're kind of in northeast corner of Oregon, along everywhere. We have a lot of people calling us and contacting us on the internet, wanting us to ship the product. But one problem we have is neither Postal Service, FedEx, or common carriers
will not deliver to a resident's address alcohol product. Because of the, especially the distilled spirits, because of the alcohol content. They do beer and wines. And then you figure in the cost of what it's gonna cost, the extra 20 or 30 bucks to get it. Plus packaging, it's, we've kind of decided that it's not really feasible for us at this time.
I mean, are you talking local stores being able to do one? I mean, I think that's, that's I think that's different than what we're talking about a little bit here with, when you're talking about how we ship it further. If there's a solution, I think it'd be great. I think it would be another service to the, another service provided that would be a point of differentiation. Competitively, I don't think it's a real issue, but what we do see in other markets where this is more prevalent and where it's a, independent, it does become pay to play. Right, so if I'm looking at, we have Timberline vodka, and if you're scrolling through vodkas and you want to see the vodka, the top of the list is often the people that pay the most money to get something put at the top of the list. So it's, again, there's complexities, but nothing that I think under a system like we have, the level playing field is what we're really talking about. So as long as we can maintain that, I think it would be great.
Has there been a study done of is there demand coming for asking for this from the store level or consumer level at the store? Money?
Well, I think there's two things on our side, right? And we're gonna have this discussion with commissions, preparing, right? Whether this is a policy idea, the feature versus the need. But one, it's harder to do brick and mortar stores for us, right? We're getting into more and more neighborhood situations because we're trying to push that forward. And, there's issues of resistance around those things, but also just that beer, wine has a proliferation. Now, cocktails to go are going directly to the consumer's door. The product and alcohol that is not is, except from distillers, is distilled spirits. And so anything from one, I think it's just helping to keep our market share relative to other alcohol and preserve, right? It's a feature that we can think about preserving our system, and continuing to grow state revenues, which is also important to us with building a new warehouse. The property was very expensive. I'll still stand behind that business deal from here to the end of time. It makes a lot of money. Get it done, we'll do it. To move forward on stuff. So that's what I'm thinking about, and feedback from you on your experience with that from the industry is going to be, I think, really important for us to think about it. And I just want to make one more comment, Mr. Chair, if I can, Brad. I think it's really an important point. We've actually put money into our budget request to help maybe fund import. And that might not be the right way to do it, right? There's other means to do that, and Brad's working on that. But I'm really glad, having been in this position for 9 years on October 26th. I can tell you one of the most rewarding parts of watching this job and doing this job is watching the Oregon industry itself mature. We've had a lot of conversations about, we keep opening distilleries in Oregon, but we got to get outside the walls of Oregon. We've got to make sure that we take our expertise and make sure that we get businesses successful elsewhere in the US and hopefully, we had a new governor on the way. I just want to Wine Board, I was there when the governors were making trips around the world to promote Oregon wine as a part of their international trips. I think this industry out of Oregon merits that opportunity for growth, for development. Maybe we're getting close to that time coming, so just want to say.
Well, we thank you. The first pandemic. We thank you very much. It's been very, we appreciate it.
Yeah, we got a 1 o'clock deadline.
I will say, I did want to make some comments because I am from Pendleton. And so now that the commission has come out to Pendleton, I would be remiss in saying that some of the speakers here and the speakers that we're going to see are near and dear to my heart. From Joseph, Oregon, it's 2 hours east from here. Beautiful, Willow Mountains and the Willow Lake is up there and is a big fan of the Chief Joseph Days as well, and getting beautiful resources there. Tia with Pendleton Whiskey, which is a wonderful product that Pendleton loves, and I was gonna ask you how the commercial, I know you guys went on a advertising campaign, and I didn't know if that was successful, a year or two ago.
Oh, yes. I mean, we created that in 2018 and it's still running just because it epitomizes brand and channel and yeah, so yes, very successful.
So, and we will always, with Hood River Distilleries, who created Pendleton Whiskey, and Proximo kind of took it to the next level, and was able to expand it even further. So we really appreciate, what all of you have been able to do for Eastern Oregon and the partnerships and relationships. I think that Pendleton has a lot of tradition and heritage and offers a lot of those wonderful relationships, and that is a lot of what the Spirits has, is a lot of relationships. So since I have everyone here today in Pendleton, I thought I would at least take the opportunity to tell you there's some wonderful things, and I hope everyone gets the opportunity to see some of those things.
And thank you.
Good morning, gentlemen. Who wants to start?
I'll start, Chair Rosenbaum, Director Martin, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Jeff Dents. I am Professor of Political Science and Craft Beer Studies at Eastern Oregon University. I've been asked to put a panel of Eastern Oregon brewers together who can inform you of the challenges and successes within their particular industry segment. My research focuses on the intersection between craft beer and tourism. I've conducted economic impact studies of the Oregon Brewers Festival for the past 10 years. And additionally, I've done the two biggest festivals in the United States, the Great American Beer Festival and the Craft Brewers Conference. My current research focuses on a comparative analysis of the three-tiered system. I must say that Oregon is quite progressive with regard to issues that I'm looking at, direct-to-consumer shipping and also self-distribution law. And I'd be happy to share the results of that with you later on. But without further ado, I just wanted to present two good friends and colleagues and to the leading brewers in Eastern Oregon who can better tell you their story, particularly with regard to being a good neighbor in terms of philanthropy and involvement in community affairs. So I'd be glad to take any questions, but I'd like to get out of the way and leave the additional time for the brewers. Thank you very much.
My name is Tim Gunther. I am the owner of Prodigal Son Brewery here in Pendleton. And let's see, I don't know how much detail or anything you'd like me to go through. I think in general, we opened in 2010, so we've been around for a little while. It's a very small brewery. It's focused, the majority of it is in-house sales by the glass. It's kind of our main focus. We do distribute just in Oregon. We started doing Washington, self-distributing. We've made 2 attempts into that and kind of backed away from it as a little bit more effort than what it was worth for our size and capacity we could do. After the shutdown for COVID has been we have not really recovered from that. So we are now only open 3 days a week. And it's mostly, our model has changed more to distributor. So I don't know if most of our beer now, I think most of it is still through the pub by the glass, but a much larger percentage is keg sales through our distributor, Hodgen in Pendleton. So.
When you say pub, what do you think? Percentage wise, are you at 50% where you were 35%?
Probably maybe 50%. Yeah, it's our beer production is about the same because we're maxed out in our system of equipment that we have. So our production is maybe slightly down, but it's pretty similar. But overall as a business, we're only open the 3 days, and we were open 6 days before then for 2 shifts, and now we're just 1 shift, 3 days. And it's all, I mean, the staffing issues is the number one concern we have, and that's the problem. So after being shut down, a lot of people that were employed there, we had a couple different groups. Several of them worked part-time as this was their for fun job, basically. So they had another job, or they were retired, or they just wanted to work part-time. You have and a lot of those didn't want to come back. They weren't interested in coming back really after the shutdown, and the climate just changed with being in the industry is not quite as fun. I think it's now kind of, we'll move past that part. You're not having to argue with customers about anything to do with the pandemic. But that kind of kept some people away. And then a lot of the regulars, we honestly, they got out of the industry because it was too volatile. So I've got probably, I don't know how many people, maybe 10 people that have left and gone to like Amazon, for example. That's one of our biggest drains is there's a new employer and they pay really well. It's a completely different type of a job, but people were ready to change industries after they were affected by the open, close, all the changes during the pandemic. So unfortunately, yeah, those guys aren't really coming back. Some people moved, some people, went to another industry. The core group we have, the bulk of them have been there since pre-pandemic. And they're kind of the ones holding on, but trying to recruit new people in, there's just not that many people in the industry. And I know I'm not alone in that. It's not specific to me, luckily. But that's the biggest challenge we have right now.
Being in your future that you're going to be able to maybe open up for more days, able to do that, or are you maybe looking at changing the business?
Yeah, we've kind of adopted the business model that we've had to do to stay open, which is the 3 days, and changing the focus to be more on beer production and distribution rather than the pub part. It is a completely different business and kind of unfortunate for us because most of our efforts and investment up front were in creating the pub atmosphere and the place for people to go and socially gather, basically not. And so it's not set up very well to do a production style brewery, and we make it work, and it's actually doing really good. The demand is out there is huge. We're commonly run out of beer. So that's on the positive side. There's a lot of demand, and a lot of places they have different business models and different staffing levels, and some depend on their business, whether the events differently than others, but that part's going really well.
If staffing and other issues get started, that you foresee moving towards that, opening a couple more days?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, just for comparison, it's hard because it's hard to explain and it's not like I need one more cook. It's or one more assistant person to do whatever. It's if you have 45 people and then now I just did paid checks yesterday and we have 20. So I need 25 more people to get back to where we were at before. And in a small town, the talent pool is very shallow, and there's a lot of people that are just not, for whatever reason. People ask me all the time, why do you think that is? Like, I don't know. And I don't know that it's OLCC's impact or has an ability for that, but just as an awareness, I mean, that's kind of where we're at, and that's my number one focus right now. But yeah, ideally, we'd like to get back to at least 6 days and 2 shifts and operate like how we're intended to. Yeah.
I am Tyler Brown from Barley Brown's Beer in Baker City, Oregon. Our company started in 1983 in the restaurant business. We added a brewery in 1998, so we're approaching 25 years. So we'll have a little bit of a party next year for that. Our operation is I guess I'll go to pre-COVID, is a brew pub, which had a small brewery. It was our original brewery. It also has a full on-premise license. So we operate as a was a brew pub with a full liquor bar. About 10 years ago, we purchased a piece of property across the street from us, and we put in a production brewery, much larger. That one, it just has a tap room, just serves beer. We run food from across the street of the restaurant over to the tap room. We also, in town, we have another restaurant that's, it's been shut down since COVID. It's a full service restaurant. It's up by the freeway. And that one's, we're trying to remodel and rethink it, to where it can operate with less employees, because we're having the same problem that Tim was saying is, you know, my payroll the day before we got shut down for COVID was, we had 55 employees. The payroll I did, this last one was for 25 employees. So we're down 20 employees. So, you know, it seems like we hire one, we lose one, so we're not gaining anything. So we have one restaurant that's completely closed and has been since the start of COVID. Our original location, the brew pub, gosh, we went through so many changes on that, trying to adapt to, you know, spread people out 6 feet apart, build barriers, you know, spread tables out. We removed the brewery because we had it was an obstruction in there to allow enough people in there to actually do a dinner business. So we've kept that open as much as we can. It's open 5 days a week. It was normally open 6 days a week. On the brewery side, I think we may be Oregon's largest draft beer only brewery in the state. We do about around 5,000 barrels a year. And we distribute in Oregon and a little bit in Idaho. We have one distributor in Idaho. And so because where we're located, transportation is a huge issue for us, because most of our beer is consumed in Portland, Eugene, Bend, where the population is. But we spend a lot of money on shipping grain from Vancouver, Washington out to Eastern Oregon, same truck, send back full kegs of beer to our distributors. So it's you know, the downturn with, you know, when we're selling only draft beer, our only customers are bars and restaurants. So and with the whole state having staffing issues, everybody's open less. There's a lot less bars and restaurants in the state than what there was before COVID. So you know, any thought of trying to get back to pre-COVID numbers with draft beer is tough, because there's not as many places to sell it, and the ones that are there are not open as many hours. And I don't know how that's going to change, because we face the same issues that Tim does. Is that, you know,
Everybody.
yeah.
What'd you average salary per hour?
Oh gosh, right now it's hard to say with because of our staff, we have 3 brewers. Brewery staff, we had to be very competitive with that, because very aggressive on their pay to keep them through the pandemic. Because we're a, you know, brewery was food manufacturing, so we're an essential business, so we kept operating. Our brewery did a quick pivot. We bent some rules, but we immediately went to canning beer, which we had never done before. And so we had to keep staff on, because we had an entire brewery full of beer. We had distributor orders wrapped, kegs wrapped, ready to go on trucks, and we got about 12 hours notice that we're out of business. So we made a quick pivot to canning beer. So we kept all of our brewing staff. I think we laid off one brewer. I think our kitchen staff, I think all of our kitchen staff we're paying more than $20 an hour for kitchen staff. Tip servers are That's a very good wage in Oregon with, with getting minimum wage plus tips. So it's, we had to stay, the other difficult thing about being the only brewery in Baker City is that we don't get to recruit brewers from the brewery across the street. We get if we lose them. And it's one of the other things really unique about our brewery is that my whole entire brewing team, myself and all three guys that work for me, none of us have ever worked in another brewery. So we all graduated from Baker High School. We all go to work in this brewery. We're not sure if we know how other people do it, but we have our own way. It's worked. So
Brewers are a different breed, aren't you? You're a whole different breed. Yeah, I know you do it for financial considerations, but you gotta love it too.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's a whole different game.
Yeah. It is. It's hard work. It's our brewery, our crew, we hope that we get 220 empty kegs back every week so that we can wash them, fill them, send them on, wrap them up on pallets, send them out again. So
what can we do now?
If you know of a magical source of employees, that would be the easiest.
We have the same problem.
Yeah.
We have very serious, same way as you.
Yeah. I don't know what the solution is. I know in our town, in Baker City, Baker County, what we've seen is it's an aging population. There's, we don't have the industry, the jobs to keep people after they graduate from high school. We don't have a college, so there's a lot of people. It's a very desirable place to live. It's beautiful. It's a great place to raise kids, good schools, stuff like that. But there's nothing to keep people there. It's stuff we had. I think we were looking at after we did layoffs with COVID. We looked at where did our employees, because some of them were workforce for 10 or 15 years. And when we laid them off, and when you go to call them back, it's, the answer is, no, I moved to Idaho because I needed a bartending job. And Idaho was open and Eastern Oregon was closed. So, a lot of them relocated. So we lost, but I think we had 2 that relocated to Mexico. There was probably 10 that moved to Idaho. They just didn't have roots in Oregon, so they were flexible. They could move wherever they wanted, and they moved to a place where they could still work in hospitality.
We explored market places.
As far as looking for an operation.
Restaurants.
Yeah, I've looked at real estate over there and at operations in Idaho because it's tends to be a little more business friendly than what Oregon is. So we've definitely looked at it. But honestly, I don't have time because we're so short-handed with contract. So we lost our bookkeepers on bookkeeper payroll. So yeah, that's the biggest challenge.
You got a question?
Hi. It's hard for me to hear. I can hear Tim and Tyler really well, but I'm having a really hard time hearing the questions from the front. So did I hear that I'm on? Is that what I heard?
You're fine. We can hear you fine.
Okay, I just don't hear the questions from you guys. But I would say that we've been, I have 1188 Brewing Company in John Day, and we've been around since 2013. We originally started out wanting to do a distribution brewery and got, 4 years into it and decided to completely pivot and make it a destination location and not distribute, which I think was a really wise move for us. So I think that we have the same issues that Tim and Tyler have as far as employees, our aging population. We're really fortunate in that the city of John Day is really pushing for economic development, and we've had some great leadership and some great, we're having some great success in that. So I think that that will be positive, but I think part of the problem of bringing employees in is that younger population that has the energy to work in our industry, because it is hard work. We have a brew pub, so we have a full service restaurant. And we self-distribute just for advertising purposes. You know, we might take a keg of beer to Burns or a keg to Baker or, you know, something like that, but that doesn't make us any money. All of our money is made in John Day pretty much. So I think creating a reason for younger people to stay that can come in and work those jobs and enjoy those jobs is part of the solution, but it's a long-term solution. I mean, it's going to take a lot of time to bring those people back. And we're doing pretty well with our employees, but mostly because the people that I've had there a long time, they live in John Day, they're connected to John Day. And then the part-time people are definitely transient. You know, they're coming and going. I feel like we're hiring, it's kind of a revolving door. So, you know, that's kind of where we're at. We have our licenses are full on premises and a brew pub license. So we're having to pay a double fee on that. But as far as anything else that the OLCC is doing or not doing, we don't have any trouble working with the OLCC or, and we're not big enough to have to do some of the more complicated reporting and stuff like that other breweries have to do. Right. Okay, now I can hear you guys again.
Okay. I was wondering what was happening.
What's that? I missed your question.
No, that's fine. We're good. Any questions? Well, we thank you.
Thank you for coming and having a meeting here.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. Mike Panel, Robert Morris, Casey McLennan, and Chris Duplo. Good morning. Excellent. Oh, yeah.
Is Chris? I don't know. You're not going on this London trip, are you? No. So good, a lot of guys, London place in the past. Yeah. Well, they kind of mixed up over there. It's going to change the mix. This is kind of the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, glad to hear it. Thank you.
Well, what's the start?
Well, let me, we're waiting for a fresh battery. Let me start. I'm Bob Morris. I'm, the founder and wine grower Phelps Creek Vineyards in Hood River. I currently sit on the Oregon Wine Board. In fact, I had the distinction of being the chair of the Oregon Wine Board during 2020. So what a time. And first of all, I want to thank the commission for being flexible during the part of the pandemic times. The average winery in Oregon is about 5,000 cases. And a lot of them depend strongly upon direct-to-consumer sales out of their tasting room. So when the governor's directive basically shut down tasting rooms, we needed to look for alternatives. And the commission and Director Marks was very flexible in allowing different opportunities, you know, so like we put picnic tables in the vineyard and we could get socially isolated tastings that became very popular. And that preserved cash flow for a lot of small wineries. That was very important. You know, plus keep in mind the on-premise business, restaurants shut down. And so that was a channel for a lot of people. Wine sales were up if you could get the product to the consumer. And so the chain stores and such picked up a lot of slack. The second whammy that happened with us in that year was then we had smoke in the Willamette Valley and in the Columbia Gorge. And smoke in other locations, but they've learned how to adapt to it. And in some cases, they have grapes that can withstand a little bit more, but Pinot Noir is particularly sensitive to it. And so right when you had the highest cash flow, negative cash flow portion of your business, when you have all the workers in the field picking grapes and when you're making wine, we suddenly had grapes that were maybe unsuitable. And so that caused another major issue. However, I'm happy to report that today, from my perspective, the industry is doing very well. Oregon Wine continues to make major inroads across the country and internationally. In fact, I will travel to London on Saturday for a pouring that's going to be at the U.S. Embassy in London with 35 Oregon producers on Monday. So a really great showing. And then there's a couple, everybody's trying to tie in and do some other events there. So it's a big splash. This is during Restaurant Week in London. And so it's designed to take advantage of that and get great press. And I think we'll continue to see inroads with Oregon Wine internationally. We're also going to be doing this next February, what is Vinexpo Paris, followed by Pro Wine in Dusseldorf. So that's part of the international agenda about moving Oregon wine out there and getting into the public consciousness. From my perspective, there's two major challenges in which, in one way, you could assist us, and another, I just want you to be aware of it. And the first one is, you know, the wine board is funded by the wine board tax. And that's a self-imposed tax that the industry has made through statute that goes to producers of wine. And it's $25 per ton. One of the issues that we have is we don't know from what county or from what ADA, you know, how we define our growing areas. Those revenues are coming from. Basically, today, when we talk about the economic activity of a region, a lot of times it's not much better than a napkin sketch. You can put together how many producers are, you think how much is going on, but we don't really have a definitive number. And Director Marks was very accommodating about saying when this online system came on for paying your grape tax, being able to collect some more data, maybe even taking the entire survey that is done of the industry for grape production and wine production and attaching it to that. But there turns out there's some statutory problems there. And so basically the rule is that if it's used for determining your tax, that information can't be revealed. You can reveal what tax is paid, but you can't, it gets very technical.
I don't understand. You're confusing me.
Yeah, well, it was confusing when it finally came out at the 11th hour. Well, we were going down this path of having a study committee to see if we could change things. Right now, the statute only asks you do a calculation of how much tonnage you produce. And therefore you can calculate your tax. But there's nothing on the form that says, and what ABA are you in and what county are you in? Okay. Now, that information is privileged information as far as protecting the business from being identified. We know the money that comes in, but we don't know who contributed.
So the total revenue, okay, the breakdown of the data as to where it's coming from, you know. So what's the significance of where it's coming from? You want to try to get some more from somewhere else?
Well, it's significant for a couple of different reasons. One is regions are always saying you're not giving enough attention to Walla Walla, you're not giving enough attention to Southern Oregon, to the Umpqua, something like that. And then, but the problem is, well, first of all, the wine board tries to give support without favor to all districts. Our mandate is not to promote a certain grape or a certain region, it's to promote Oregon wine. But that gets lost on people, and especially gets lost because there's some strong organizations like the Willamette Valley Winery Association. That's such a strong organization that people conflate the roles of the wine board with that organization. So they think they're sucking the oxygen out of the room. They think it's the wine board doing that. No, it's your regional organization that's so strong. The counter to that is a stronger regional organization around the states, around the state. So if one district says we are producing 40% of the total grape and wine in the Oregon wine industry based on the napkin sketch, then another napkin sketch says, but how come your wineries only contribute 25% of the revenue? There's a disconnect there. And one of those disconnects is it's very easy in Oregon for a producer of grapes to sell their grapes out of state and have it go under the radar. So you could be a producer of Pinot in the Umpqua and you're shipping it to California, and that vineyard may have an obligation, but if we don't even know where the vineyards are, that's my next issue I'm going to bring up. The California winery sees very little mandate to report what they're crushing of Oregon grapes. So we're just trying to tighten up this circle.
Just jump in for a minute. It's the basic concept is the OLCC has been tasked with collecting our tax that we voted to tax ourselves, but we can't ascertain who's paying and who isn't and where it's coming from. So the ask is, can we get at least aggregate data to the county level? Something like that.
Yeah.
But it's not revealing private or privileged information.
I got it, but we've been around for a little while now. And 3 years ago, we went around and Commissioner Rubel was shaking his head because the one thing we didn't want to do is get involved in the middle. We said to all you guys, you go find it out among yourselves and then come back to us when you have a solution to the problem. So, and everybody knows what I'm talking about, so I won't get into it. The question I have for you is, okay, we go along these lines. What other organizations in the state that are involved in the wine industry would oppose it?
When we had a study committee that was composed of one person from the Willamette Valley Winery Association, myself from the Oregon Wine Board, and 2 members of the Oregon Wine Council. And everyone was very receptive to the type of information that I'm talking about. Where it fell apart was the idea of putting out the survey of grape and wine production. And then that information, even if it came in the same email, was no longer privileged and would have to identify the business because of open information laws or what word. And so I'm not saying I have a solution right now, but I think we need to, on a more narrow focus, a more narrow mandate, look at how we could amend the statute just so that submitting the tax also had you give your ABA and your count or your county, so that we could ascertain where the money actually comes from, not the business, but the region. And that's what becomes important. The second issue is we don't really know in Oregon where all the vineyards are, because there's no mandate to register your vineyard. And so that could be useful for a number of different things. The first is that we should be able to communicate to vineyards when we have an issue with research or pests that are new to the area. And we're constantly, there's constantly super bugs that are moving across the country, and there's several that we're tracking right now. But we don't really know where those vineyards are. The second is that it would also aid us in communicating that they have an obligation to file for their tax. So I see a simple registration, probably through the ODA, that at least gives us the owner's name and the address for this vineyard, and then we can communicate from there. It becomes our problem to communicate. It's not an enforcement problem.
So you would bring us a proposal eventually?
I think the proposal would probably go to the ODA, but we would want you always to be informed of, or this is how we're trying to resolve this particular issue.
And that's only on the identification of where they are. The other issue might involve us data into the taxes.
Yes.
Commissioner, right?
As you're aware, we have a number of brother sister organizations that we work with. For our umbrella. We took over some activities from another state division where those growers did not have their locations listed anywhere. We don't have that. So what I'm gonna ask you to do is when you talk to the OPA, push that, be aware that when you ask us to get involved, may not be happy about how we get involved. But when that happens, I take it will happen. Just remember that we've had this conversation.
I will. I want to make clear that any effort in this area will not be done wearing my hat as an Oregon Wine Board Director, but it would come through the Oregon Wine Growers Association and potentially the Oregon Wine Council, but those are the legislative ends and they're separate organizations, but that's where that happened. Casey, I've done enough talking. What can you hold?
Okay, let's talk about the Walmart Valley. I also appreciate your time today to learn a little bit about what's going on here in Eastern Oregon. I'll just start out with a few facts and a brief intro. I helped establish the first commercial vineyard on the Oregon side of the Appalachian way back in the early 1980s. I've been growing grapes and making wine here since ever since. So almost 4 decades in the business. My role with Seven Hills is currently as a consultant. Winemaking has been turned over to the next generation of winemakers. So, but just to give you, so I've been deeply immersed in the industry out here for quite some time. So, few facts. Walla Walla Valley is actually the second AVA in the state of Oregon, 1 year after the Willamette Valley. Of course, we're much smaller. And only 1/3 of that, our appellation is in Oregon, 2/3 is in Washington. Similar to Bob's area, we are a cross-border appellation, and that presents its own advantages and challenges. There's about 3,000 acres of vineyard. About 40% of the vines are on the Oregon side of the border. 120 wineries, 12 of which are on the Oregon side of the border. So you can see there's a little bit of an imbalance there where people are choosing to site their winery versus vineyards. We, in fact, started on the Oregon side with our winery and vineyard, and we're there 11 years. Of course, our vineyards, I'm speaking today as a vineyard owner in the state of Oregon, but the winery moved to Washington State for tax and marketing related issues, which I'll touch on a little later. It's a great AVA to be working in, a real large number of benefits, very little rain, 300 days of sunshine, grapes love that. It's dry, well-drained soil, so you can find some great character and ageability. Range of altitudes, but unlike the Willamette, we have cold winters and hot summers, and we really don't have to worry about rain affecting our vintages out here, which is a huge plus. On the other hand, we have something called winter, and it gets cold enough out here that sometimes, rarely, over the last 40 years, you'll lose the top of the vine. You'll have to regrow and lose its season's production. That has gotten a little bit better with time compared to my early years here. There's less severe freezes, but grapes don't like it when it gets below -8. I don't know if Chris is here, but the latest ADA development here is the Rocks District, which you can see on the map, a little tiny. Here it is. Hey, you guys started early. So I'm kind of midway, Chris, so you've got time to settle in. Okay. Get oriented. So Chris will be addressing the Rocks ADA, which is a wonderful aspect of the appellation, and it's wholly within Oregon. So kind of looking at a little COVID review, and I think most of our wineries are small. They're we have a few big ones. There's in Milton Free Water, there's a very large cider works, one of the larger facilities in the United States, and a custom crush facility for wine. So there is one larger player on the Oregon side, but most of the weight of wine production is on the Washington side. So direct to consumer sales, either through shipping, e-commerce, drive-by and pickup, and delivery, anything like that, was very important to our wineries during the COVID era. I would say COVID generated some great movements technologically for us that made it a stronger industry. So there's some silver linings in that. But I also would say that generally speaking, I think people were very satisfied with the OLCC's response. And I would say that flexibility and progressive stance towards fulfilling your mission while minimizing our regulatory burden is a great format to go forward with if we experience something like the pandemic again. And we're very grateful for adaptability, I guess I'd say. So appreciate that. And so benefits of growing grapes out here, there's we have very low pest pressures. We've got what I would call almost the perfect climate to grow grapes. It's sort of like cheating, I say, because it's so well framed for grape growing. land is less expensive, and unlike many parts of the I-5 corridor, Umatilla County, we want development. We need development. We want to see more businesses and wineries here, and there is room to grow. We also have a very committed industry, quality oriented. Some of the highest scoring wines in the state of Oregon are produced in Walla Walla Valley. So we know how to make good wine and grow good grapes. We have a lot of customers downriver from the Willamette Valley too, where there's a lot of Willamette wineries that appreciate the character of our grapes and see how they fit into their program. So it truly is kind of a statewide reach. Challenges, we're isolated. We are a destination area. Nobody just wanders out here, and finds us by chance. So we don't have a Portland, Portland, Seattle, Spokane, Boise, they're all like, at least 3.5, 4 hours away. So any tie-in we can get with tourism agencies is very key, and we work on that, building those relationships. The destination visitor is very important to us, as well as other direct to consumer. So we need to see people in our tasting rooms. The other challenges from the production side is we have low rainfall, we have to irrigate. And if you're going to irrigate, you need an irrigation system, which is wells, pumps. So big capital investment to make that happen. It's just not enough rain to support great growth here, natural rainfall. And we also have frost season, spring and fall, which many areas deal with. But if you have frost, you have to have frost protection. And out here, generally, that's the giant fans. I don't know if you've ever seen them. They're like the wind turbines, but very tiny. So, maybe 30 feet high instead of 300. And then to get through winters, sometimes we have to bury one of the canes or the shoots on the vine under the ground. That costs about $500 to $1,000 per acre. Chris might have a better number for the rocks on that. But so added expense that you have to recoup through your selling price. So, all that being said, it's a great region to be in this business, and appreciate whatever the OLCC can do to help us make the best of it. So, Bob talked about aggregate data. I believe that the people I talked to said they were pretty happy with COVID response, major impediments, and if you were saying, well, how can we encourage business out here? There is the income tax issue, which I think drives part of the movement to Washington State for businesses. And there is a marketing perception also, where Washington State is better known for the typical varieties we grow here, like Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon, Syrah. But that being said, we still have the Oregon side of things growing here. Vineyard acreage is growing, winery count is growing, and hopefully we can elevate the tourist experience in Melton Free Water and get more people out visiting.
Hey, Joe Turner.
My turn?
Go to Turner.
Thank you for inviting me. My name is Chris Ducolo. I am co-owner, co-winemaker, chief bottle washer at Duclos Cellars in the Rocks District of Milton Free Water ABA. We moved from the Seattle area where we started making wine to the Rocks District in 2018 because of a very unique style of wines and grapes that we get out of this particular ABA. This ABA is known for having basalt cobblestone at the surface going down up to 100 feet. It is very unique in a series soil type throughout the AVA. We do not have varying soils throughout that AVA. So it's outwash from the Walla Walla River over last several million years. And we are planting vines on or in an old creek bed or riverbed from the Walla Walla River. The wines that come from the rocks are very distinctive. You get a savoriness, a minerality, a term called umami, which is like MSG or just that savoriness. It has a cult following. There are, as Casey said, wines that achieve scores above 95 consistently, both from wineries in Oregon that make wine from the Rocks District or wineries in Washington that buy fruit from the Rocks District. Still today, I would say that the majority of wineries that make wine from the Rocks District are making it in Washington. Now, one of the unique aspects of the TTB labeling rules are that wineries that produce and bottle in Washington cannot put the Rocks District and Milton Free Water on their labels. No different than California wineries cannot get fruit from Willamette Valley and call it Willamette Valley. I'm not articulating that anything changes there, but it's just one of the interesting aspects of fruit that is grown in the Rocks District. So little numbers, currently we have about 500 acres of vineyards planted today. It's growing rapidly. We expect another 200 acres over the next couple of years in development. And because the apple market is really struggling, we're also just seeing a lot of orchards get ripped out and being replaced by grapes because of the unique aspect of it. What else can I tell you about the Rocks? 50 odd vineyards. Today we have 5 tasting rooms and probably 5 wineries, actual wineries in the Rocks District. There are more in the more in the planning stages. One of our challenges is Milton Free Water is struggling economically still. While Walla Walla is going crazy, and even Waitsburg, just to the east of Walla Walla, is starting to see a resurgence. Oddly enough, Milton Free Water still is not seeing that. So it's a little bit of a challenge to have a tasting room, yet there's no real restaurant infrastructure, no lodging infrastructure within Milton Free Water. We would love to see, not that this is OLCC, but we would love to see some sort of economic enterprise zone designation, tax credits for development or anything of that nature. We believe by doing that the overall wine industry in Milton Free Water will grow. So challenges, I'll speak to COVID. I mean, I think the response was good. Our personal issue was that our zip code per se, the Milton Free Water zip code, when you looked at the data, was almost non-existent with COVID cases. It was more those folks over in Umatilla and Hermiston that hurt us in their processing facility. So, I would love it if restrictions and things like that in the future could be done at the zip code level. Not sure that's realistic. I know we would look at the numbers and go, wait a minute, we got nothing here. So, but other than that, it was good. I think we all learned from it, and everyone was making decisions on the fly. And I think the communication was good on the state's part. From a regulatory standpoint, I think permitting is fine. It's pretty easy. From tax reporting, I struggle a little bit with the lack of instructions, things like we're a small winery, so we obviously do less than 5,000 gallons a year. And, like the small winery credit or deduction, it's really hard on how that works and finding instructions for how that works. We sell almost all of our wine direct to consumer, so it's not like I can pull out invoices where I'm selling it to distributor. We do not do distribution. We just sell to consumer. So how do I enter that? And just, you know, some of the basics around that stuff.
How do you become cognizant of the regulations if they come out? Is it your responsibility to read them or?
Yeah, I mean, right now, it probably is my responsibility to read them. I mean, within our winery, it's me. Yeah, if that's your question.
So, yeah, so when we pass a regulation, you have. I'm just curious because you got basically a relatively small operation.
Yeah.
And we're passing regulations, you have to read them and understand them and abide by it.
And I don't even necessarily get alerted to a new regulation. I mean,
That's what
it's.
I'm trying to figure out that.
I do it through, if it's tax related, then I do it through the forms, which is, okay, I have a form that I have to fill out. Maybe there was some regulation passed that altered that form, but other than that, no, I do not. I don't think I get emails from OLCC saying, hey, here's what's changed. The Washington State Liquor Control Board is very good about that, not only for proposed rules, but also past rules.
In a different life, I was on the Joint Administrative Rules Committee in Michigan many years ago. And people in the state, and Oregon is no different. You pass a single business tax, or you pass any one of those taxes, 9/10 of business people don't know what's going on until their accountant tells them this is what's happening. And then all of a sudden you turn around and say, you're kidding. Because it's always an 8 to 10 month lag between what the legislation is and when your accountant gets a hold of you. That's why I asked that question. Because when they come out, you don't necessarily see them. You just find out about them on the back end.
I think that's correct.
I don't know how to change it, but
Well, I think
that's the way it goes. Any business, you don't know about it until the tax man says, this is what you owe. And then you say, oh my God, what kind of nut job did this?
yeah, I think,
I mean, we go through it all the time.
and I don't know if there is an email list that I should be signed up for that tells me new stuff, but, yeah, it would be nice just to have an email, even monthly, just with, here's what's changed.
I know we have one. That's why I asked the question. And there's gotta be a better way. There has to be a better way that we can convey to you what we're doing.
You can sign up on the website for Gov Delivery on rule changes, on all kinds, you can choose what you want updates on.
Okay, so like I said, it's probably there, and I just didn't find it. Yeah.
With all due respect, and we do a good job on that, but when you're running a business like that, you're not gonna sit there and read a 40-page regulation. They're just not gonna do it.
We do send synopsises, but, you know, we've done a better job on the marijuana side because actually we had all their email addresses from those days. But the new tax system we put in place is going to help with that, obviously, right? Everyone's going to get enrolled in that. So, yeah, we'll endeavor to do a better job with poignant communications. We have some of that going out regularly, but we can do a better job, no doubt.
Yeah, maybe I'll just the renewal required email address. And
yeah, that will do. That is one of, you know, I can push a button and communicate with all my bars and restaurants. Now, we have a public safety problem in Hamilton. I can like get a hold of everyone and say, hey, you guys did terrible at your energy away reports or anything. You know, we gotta pay attention to that. But even just giving you base indications, we'll work on that. I think we have some of that. I don't think we do as good a job of getting that to the beer, wine, liquor side of alcohol side of our organization, like we do with marijuana. They grew up with it, they got it, and they get used to it. Try to normalize that.
And then with respect to just taxes, I think as you moved online, maybe trying to be a little bit more explicit with instructions on how to fill out forms for us small people that, you know, we don't have formal compliance people. Yeah. I think that's all I have.
That was very good. Commissioners, any questions? It's nice to listen to what you're doing in this part of the state. And because sometimes you get drowned out. And you know, that's the reason why we're here, because it'll stick in our minds.
Yeah, thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you.
One quick question. So I see here that your AVA, your particular AVA, is the raw cab. No peanuts, huh? Surprised me.
It's difficult. We have too much heat for peanut. We can grow it, but you cook it, you really cook it, you don't get any of that really nuanced profile that you will in cooler climates like the Willamette.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Last but not least, is the hospitality panel.
Good morning. Good morning, commissioners. We have one that was sick this morning, and rather than come and potentially infect everyone, he decided to stay home. I hope that's okay.
It's nice when they're sick, they stay home.
Yeah, I think so too. For the record, my name is Greg Astley. I'm the Director of Government Affairs with the Oregon Restaurant Managing Association, located in Wilsonville, and appreciate being here again. I'll keep my remarks brief, and then I'm available to answer any questions before I turn it over to our licensee here. But I want to reiterate again the appreciation of the industry for the support that we've had from the OLCC, the commissioners, the professional staff throughout the pandemic, whether it was the licensing that we went through with the outdoor dining areas, whether it was cocktails to go, and home delivery. Those were all tremendously helpful to our industry. And as I'm sure you know, we are still struggling through COVID and the impacts of that. Hiring issues, supply chain issues, all of those are still affecting us. We have things like, it's not a problem over here right now, but the air quality in Portland today is worse than it was yesterday because of the wildfire smoke. So my son's, he's coaching a football team that I coach with him, and we had to go indoors yesterday. All the outdoor activities were canceled. So you can imagine what that's like if you're dining outdoors at your favorite bar or restaurant, trying to enjoy a nice cocktail or a beer, glass of wine. As we do recover, one of the things that we want to keep in mind, we want you to keep in mind as well, is, and it's been talked about, I think, a little bit before here, the number of kind of rules and regulations that we see. I've been talking with a lot of candidates. It's that time of year where a lot of people are running for office and they want to hear from us as an industry. And some of them will say, well, you know, if I get elected to the legislature, what would you like us to do? What would you like to see? And I said, honestly, nothing. I would rather you do nothing for a second.
Yeah.
And I say that tongue in cheek.
You can do is go.
It would be wonderful if you could.
Into the industry. I've run other businesses. My business partner's a wheat farmer and we're born and raised Pendletonians. I graduated high school with Jennifer's husband. I mean, like she was talking about earlier, it's the Eastern Oregon is a small area. Everybody kind of knows everybody. And that's kind of why I bought the bar. We call it the Bow. It's an institution in Pendleton. I mean, there's the Roundup, obviously, and the Bow's not on the same level, but in a way it is to the locals. We bought it because there's no way we could have lost. There's so many regulars. everybody we know goes there. So we bought it and now we're just trying to win the ropes. Which, you know, gives us a long leash because of the regulars. As long as we don't change too much, then we'll be fine. But, so, yeah, I've been listening, learning. I really don't know a whole lot. To me, in the, you know, OLCC was just something, they make all these rules, I just gotta make sure I follow them. I have no idea what OLCC technically does for me other than put a bunch of rules out there, you know? And that's just from somebody who hasn't done a lot of research on it. Listening to, I've learned a lot today, actually, and I appreciate, you know, this opportunity, you guys coming over here, because I've never drive to the valley for a meeting like this, I guarantee you. So, from that perspective, it's really good, but, you know, I basically can ask or answer questions if you have any, but I don't have a lot to throw out there, like I said.
So I gotta that, I appreciate your comments, and good luck. In the 10 months that you own the store, have you ever listened to any of our commission meetings?
No.
Before you bought the store, did you know about the OLCC?
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, it's been involved in things that I've been involved in. You know, I volunteer at the Roundup every year. I run the local wrestling club. I'm the head of that. We have a booth that we, you know, it's a fundraiser for us. We sell beer out of booth, so we know that there's rules and stuff and, you know, just not the depth of it, I guess. Like this.
Have you been visited by any investigators from the OLCC?
Oh, yeah.
So is your opinion one that we're there that, please be honest about this, are we there to help you or to put obstacles in your way?
No, I mean, like I said, before I thought it was just a bunch of rules. Stan, our local, I don't know if he's a rep or investigator. He's been by the bar a couple of times. He's asked questions. He's always let us know, you know, if you guys have questions, please come to me. It's worked out great. We haven't had any issues. So, and in fact, I'm going to get a hold of him shortly because we're doing a little expansion and I don't know how all that works as far as multiple addresses and stuff. So, you know, we plan on using the resources. Like I said, we're learning step by step. But yeah, I have no complaints.
That's a good question, Jim.
What's that?
That's a very good question, and I'd like to hear that from the rest of industry. The commission deems it's somebody here to help licensees or, you know, an officer getting involved. And I'd like to think that it's not the latter. I'd like to, we are here to help. So work with your local inspector and, you know, figure out all those things to, you know, make your business successful. How many employees do you have?
We have 15.
15?
Yeah. Yeah, which is not near enough. We open at 6 a.m. and close at 2 a.m. We have 20 hours a day. And that's just the expectation of owning the bow. We were just open all the time. I don't think there's another place in Pendleton that's like that. I mean, you know, Denny's used to be 24 hours. They're not open as many hours as we are. So, and that was one of the things, like, it's been mentioned by just about everybody, personnel issues. You know, to stay open, I'm paying overtime all the time. It's really hard to find people that will work for basically minimum wage and tips, part-time. Nobody wants to have 2 or 3 shifts a week. And I've got these full-time people that, you know, eat up most of my hours. But I can't find people to work, you know, Sunday and Thursday from 4 to 10 or something. You know, it's just not enough hours to keep somebody there. It's really challenging, and it's something that I think locally, you know, business owners should talk to each other about more, because I see that, you know, this business, and because a lot of businesses have scaled back their hours, we've noticed, where we just have refused to. You know, why can't I borrow your people on the days you're closed? Hire them and use them as well. So they basically got 2 part-time jobs making their full-time job or whatever. And a lot of people are scared to do that because they think that, oh, they'll like it better there or whatever. It's just that one of the issues we're working through was because, like I said, I pay out a lot of overtime, and and I'm down with a lot. You think, oh, I'm gonna buy a bar, it's gonna be fun, you call my buddies, hey, look what I bought. But I've heard other people say, I wash dishes. I've been the night janitor. I've done all of it in the last 10 months. And it gets tough, but I don't know how to get more people to want to work part-time.
How long has the Rainbow been there?
Rainbow opened in 1883.
The
Yeah.
oldest bar
It
in
is,
Midland County.
it's the second oldest bar in Oregon.
Chris, did you know that Commissioner Floyd owns a very well-established, very respected restaurant in Portland, and that she is on this commission as the representative of the Restaurant Association and the bars? Did you know that?
I did not know that.
See, I figured that you did, so when you were sitting here, and rightfully so, telling us all your issues, she's sitting there saying, I've gone through the whole thing 100 times over, and the only reason I'm saying it is that there's a lot of people listening to this. We have somebody on this commission that actually owns a very established, wonderful restaurant. So she knows everything that's going on in that industry. So it's good to keep in mind that.
What do you think your top issue is? Is it staffing shortages?
Yeah, it's personnel by far. I mean, we have a little bit of the supply chain things that people were talking about, but that's, it's not so much from a liquor standpoint. It's more food for the kitchen. Whether I'm buying through vendors, going to cash and carry, instead of just having it all brought to me by vendors, I do as much of that as I can. I'm running around. I end up at Safeway and Walmart trying to find odds and ends so that we can, instead of telling people, sorry about this, but we still have to do that every day. And it's just little stuff and it changes week to week. So, but it's okay.
One of the things is make sure that you are receptive to adaptability. Because this is right now, this industry is ever changing, right? And there are not, there was an onset of challenges when the pandemic hit. There's an onslaught of challenges post this pandemic, and we are reinventing the wheel. And that is incredibly important to make sure that you do. I know that I also have a, 63-year institution in the city of Portland, a lot longer, but you have to be receptive to change.
And
Sustainable, paying overtime every pay period, that's not, that's something.
oh, no, we get it. But we're playing a lot of catch up. When we bought the bar, it was still cash only. We had to institute a point of sale system and start taking cards. That's how behind it is. So we step by step, as we have capital, we put money back in, but it's
almost, how are we surviving, the challenge, the recent challenges, death thousands, so many different, it's not just one thing, it's not just supply chain issues, it's not just staffing shortages, we've got inflation that's risen. And you look at your bill, what it is today, as opposed to when you purchased it 10 months ago.
Yeah.
What you're paying for protein and what you're paying, it's just through the roof.
Yeah, how often can we update our menu and change prices and still keep our customers happy? Yeah, we're learning all that.
And labor, your payroll is your number one expense next to that food bill. And labor, when you hear people say, well, minimum wage plus tips, well, our minimum wage, thing here, $15 an hour. That's our minimum wage. Plus tips, it's well over $20 an hour to your staff. And that's challenging as an employer because, by the time as an employer, you're looking at the payroll taxes, the matching Social Security and Medicare. Well, to that employer, that's pretty much close to just south of $20 an hour, right? That's very expensive.
Yeah, we have no margin in our kitchen. The bar does great. Margins are just so much better.
Yeah.
But without the bar, we can die.
You see what I mean? Listen, I would very much like local
staff to come up here, introduce yourself, please. Come on, guys, you've been shy through the whole thing. Come on,
Chair Rosenbaum,
everybody come up.
while they're making their way up, just one more thing I'd like to add. I know that you all are feeling the pinch of higher costs with the warehouse, labor, inflation, all those things, but I want to reiterate how important that is to our industry, that we continue to have that availability of product, and to be able to get it quickly. So thank you for continuing with that project. I know.
It's nuts.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say. If I say anything else, I'm gonna get in trouble. So I'm-
Your head shake says it all, sir.
Please come up. I want an introduction. And.
Stand, everyone. Yeah, maybe. Get you a microphone.
Just,
So just tell the commission a little bit about how long you've been with the commission, what you do for us there. Dan, is a big Oregon Ducks fan, so.
I saw the duck yesterday. I like that.
Good Ducks.
My staff had an office inspector here now that I've been here for 20 years.
My name is Mark Collier. I've been with the commission actually 6 years on Monday. So my half of the district is pretty much everything east of Umatilla County. I go over the mountain to the Idaho border. Specifically liquor. So I do.
My name is Ben Williams. I'm a marijuana inspector, covers Umatilla County currently since December, but I've been with the commission for about 4.5 years.
My name is Lori Sharp. I'm the regional manager for Central and Eastern Oregon. We work out of Bend. These are my folks. Oh, almost 5 years, about 4.5 years, you said?
I'm Brad Hackworth. I'm the new district manager for the retail stores, the liquor stores in Eastern Oregon. Coming from Parkdale to Jordan Valley. I've been with the commission for 4 years. And
I just want to say thank you guys. And I really mean that. Lori came over to me 3 weeks ago and introduced herself. I've been chairman of the commission for 5 years. I don't get out to Eastern Oregon. So, you know, you came over, you said, thank you. I feel like, you know, we know you guys, so it's really nice to actually see you. Thank you in person, because if it wasn't, I'm just not saying that's what I believe. If it wasn't for people like you, we don't function very well. So you don't, I know you're kind of shy over here, but we thank you anyway. Shy here, probably not on a day-to-day basis. I'll make that. Thank you. Thank you. Commissioner Carter. No? Done?
I was going to ask Chris before we were done. Would you do it again?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been fun. Round up his cat.
Well, thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm gonna ask in 6 months how to do it. Any other, do we have anything else? I don't think so. Steve, you got anything to say before we?
Yes, sir.
This is the first, well, we'll remember this, and it's the first time Steve didn't say anything. Thank you so much, everybody. We appreciate it. Meeting adjourned.